effective January 1st, 2024, there's some points changes to Canadian Highlander. And there's a lot of them. There's a big old doozy of them. I'm going to cover all the changes. I'm going to talk about them individually as to like the greater picture of, you know, why these changes are happening. And I'm going to cover, well, who voted on them and how they voted. As a reminder, for a card to be added to the points list or removed from the points list, or in a rare occasion, a card that is adjusted by more than 1 point, you need to have a unanimous vote. So in order for some cards to be added to the points list or other cards to be removed, or a big leap because it's like, I don't know, let's say a card gets printed that makes, what's a good 1 point? True Name Nemesis. Let's a card that gets printed that makes True Name Nemesis just like a 3-point card. We would need to 5-0 vote for that sort of thing. Let me get that in front of me. Mr. Dr. Lewis, welcome to the channel. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for joining us. Glad to have you. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Thank you so much for the support. Okie dokie. So the following changes were made to Canadian Highlander. Ancestral Recall went from 7 to 8 points. 4th Eorlingas went from 0 to 1 point, getting added to the points list. Birthing Pod went from 1 to 0 points, removing it from the points list. Demonic Tutor went from 4 to 3 points. Gifts Ungiven went from 2 to 1. Natural Order from 3 to 2. Spellseeker from 3 to 2. Strip Mine from 3 to 2. And Umezawa's Jitte from 2 to 1. Let's start with the increases, and then we can work through the decreases, and then we can also talk about the cards that were voted on, Merchant Scroll and Minsk Buu Timeless Heroes, but not successfully so, because of reasons that I said up at the top of the show. Shall we? All right. So Ancestral Recall, huh? Now, officially, the highest pointed card in Canadian Highlander. This was a unanimous 5-0. Everybody voted for this. And for good reason. Because the best thing to do in Canadian Highlander is to cast Ancestral Recall with Tundra and Volcanic Island in play. And then the second best thing to do in Canadian Highlander is play Black Lotus. Because you can go faster than the decks that look to accrue all the value with Ancestral Recall. And then the third best decks in Canadian Highlander are the versions of Jeskai or Jeskai Green across different color combinations that cast Ancestral Recall. And then some other stuff. Point being, Recall has been the top dog in our format for quite a long time and has in fact just gotten better. Cards as a whole have become more efficient, cheaper. We have more free spells than, ever. And the free spells that we got are, especially from Modern Horizons 2, they are not as situational as the first round of cards from Modern Horizons 1, and they're just everywhere. It's the best thing. It's the best thing to do in the format, right? Is you just play Recall in your blue-red X decks or Jeskai Green, that sort of thing, and it just kind of leads to a bunch of non-games. It's really good if you're. It's still good if you're going fast. I mentioned that Black Lotus. Obviously, the Black Lotus decks are great at trying to go under these Recall decks, especially because some of the additional free spells that the Recall decks have received are ones that punish playing to the board, and the Lotus decks typically don't do that. So it while the Lotus strategy is still pretty good at kind of circumventing the extra strength that these decks have received in the past couple of years, it still isn't enough because things are so efficient that like a Jeskai control deck, or or what you would want to call a control deck, can recall and then just still dump their hand, right? They can still develop like a meaningful board presence that will just be able to run them, run their opponent over, or be able to get out a must answer threat while also having the world's most efficient removal spell, or if you dip into stuff like Grixis or even Sultai, being able to recall into hand attack counterspell, or just like double hand attack or hand attack Goyf very early on, being able to just like being able to draw 3 cards and then also just immediately use all of them is wild. It sounds kind of weird to talk about it in this context because it's fucking Ancestral Recall. Of course it's good. But this card was dominant and 7 points when we didn't have as many free spells, when these decks were just bloated with 3 drops, playing dragons like other 5 drops. It's and all these other cards, and as time has gone on, you can still play Ancestral Recall in your deck with like a top end card, but that top end card, be it something like Minsk Buu or Comet or Seasoned Dungeoneer, is just going to be ending the game more efficiently than something like Glorybringer or Baneslayer Angel or even Teferi 5 has ever done. So yeah. It's about time. I heard something said in Magic discussion that really changed my thought process when it came to approaching Gladiator or Highlander or even Commander, even in stuff involving Commander, is just, you can play with other cards. Like, I know, not to say like Recall's now 8, stop playing with this card or whatnot, but it's just like, look, there are so many other things you can do in the format, and ideally we make changes to the points list to incentivize people to actually play with different cards, new strategies, take game actions, whatever. And I think Recall to 8 is one of those where it's like, if you still want to jam Ancestral Recall, like Recall Mystical Tutor Treasure Cruise, not that bad of a spread. Recall Mystical 4th Eorlingas, maybe that's still not that bad. That could just kill people dead. We'll get to 4th in a second here. But yeah, Ancestral Recall, 8-point cards, most expensive card in the Canadian Highlander Points list. Hey Ben, are you going to get a voting breakdown for these point changes in the Discord like we did last time? Yes. Yeah, I'm going to verbalize them here. But when a post with the breakdown of everything goes up on the Discord, it will have those as well. 4th Eorlingas, going from 0 to 1 point, being added to the points list. So this card is unreal, right? It's so incredibly unreal. It is. What's there to say about this card? It is relatively cheap to cast to get something incredible off of it, right? A 3 mana become the Monarch while building to the board is already pretty strong. Like 3 mana, make a haste creature with and trample at that, and a 2/2 become the Monarch, already incredibly strong. 2 mana, I hit you with my 1-drop and become the Monarch, also incredibly strong. Casting this for 10 to kill, or 10 total mana cost or 7 total mana cost or whatever to just one-shot your opponent, also very fucking strong. This is a card that is good at every point of the game, that introduces something to the game that is difficult to take back. I'm trying to word this in a way that doesn't get people screaming about the initiative, because the Monarch is different from the initiative. And in fact, one of the weaknesses of one of the weaknesses of the initiative is also that if it gets taken back, unless you are a dedicated deck with the initiative, like a dedicated initiative deck or a dedicated board-based strategy, like it is more of a vulnerability than the Monarch. The Monarch can also be quite, quite a liability, but it's one that, like, the deck that is built around getting the Monarch and keeping the Monarch operates closer to something like Library of Alexandria, whereas something with the initiative plays out more like a Mishra's Workshop, if that makes sense. Maybe I've been playing too much Vintage, but it's one of these things of like, here's this haymaker. Oh shit, it got dealt with. Okay, well now introducing this was a complete liability and I will actually lose the game because of this. Whereas it's like, oh, you got it. You got rid of it. You got the monarchy. Oh, well, I mean, that's fine. You can have it. Like, I'm still up so many cards or whatever. Yeah, this card's absurd. It's easy to tutor. It ends games. It just creates multiple bodies off of a single card while introducing the monarchy. It's wild. It's absurd. If you've followed any cube content, legacy content, and occasionally vintage content, you will probably have seen this card pop up and ruin some days. And yeah, it's a welcome addition to the points list. It's a step in the right direction of addressing some of these over the top cards that make the format more snowbally, and also reinforces this idea of 1 point cards being cool and good and something you want to actually think about. I personally would want more done, and we'll get to that when we talk about something like Minsk Buu. But this is definitely a step in the right direction of just being like, yeah, you don't get everything, but if you want this, you can get that, because that's a huge part of Canadian Highlander in the first place. And we kind of lost that in the past couple of years. So yeah, fuck fourth Eorlingas. Also, the fact that this is so funny. It's a blue card. Like, can you believe that they made a blue fireball that introduces the monarchy that builds to the board? This is incredible. Or the fact that not only is it a split card where it's blue, but it's also green. Like, fourth Eorlingas is just either a blue card or a green card, or it could have been anything at 4 mana and you're dead. Blue, Ben? Yeah. I'm not just being cute. It's while yes, red and white are in the mana cost of this card is the scariest in a blue deck, obviously, something like Jeskai or Jeskai Green.
Another one.
Or like a dark Jeskai style deck, Jeskai core playing with this card. That's at its scariest, where you can control the board and then just have a way to actually kill your opponent, go wide, and get the monarchy, and then continue the flow of cards and all your cheap interactive spells. Or it's green and you're playing something like Naya or Gruul monsters that's splashing white, or 4-color blood, something like that. And you're taking advantage of the good mana, but also the fact that you can accelerate ahead of what your opponents are doing, get this down before anybody has any say in the matter, and then, win the game from that. Also, I can't believe I'm saying this, but yeah, this card sees play in, Boros and Mardu and whatnot, but I don't even think Boros deserves this free gimme. Like, Boros is really fucking good in 2023 and will continue to be good in 2024. There are other cards from this past year that have really helped push Boros, and we've received some of them in the past couple of months too. Inti being a big one. Inti, fourth Eorlingas, the Eomer, the 5-mana Eomer. Even getting more, just better removal with like Get Lost, you get Fury, you get Solitude, you get the best initiative creatures. It's or some of the best initiative creatures. You get some gas. It's great. Boros is great. Next up, Birthing Pod. Also, well, before I do that, I should say thank you to Elf Lawyer, Jesus Louises, gifting 5 subs to the community, with the lucky winners being Dr. Petrichor, Raisins for Life, Tinawan, drummy, and practically literate. That's very kind of you, elf lawyer. It's not quite New Year's there yet, but Happy New Year's. And Zaunot back for the 39th month. Yo, I heard they got point changes in here. I got a couple. I got some here. I got a couple of points changes here. Benjamin, thanks for at last putting pod to 0. You signing pod to 0 at Mini this year manifested this. Oh yeah, I forgot. Well, I am something of profit. Birthing pod has gone from 1 point to 0 points. Birthing pod was something that we voted on last time, but again, because it is a points change that would involve adding a card to the list or removing a card entirely, it needed to be unanimous. And I believe it was 4-1, maybe 3-2, but I know for certain that I was one of the people that said, hey, no, I want to keep birthing pod at 1. Here's the thing. Creature combo in 2023. I'm going to keep saying that because it's not 2024 yet. Creature combo is suffering a little bit. There are versions of creature combo decks that you can play, but from a competitive standpoint, you're not beating out the Jeskai decks, you're not beating out the Lotus decks, and you are also now just struggling with the mid-range decks. Traditionally, the creature combo decks would struggle with the Fork Bolt Pyrokinesis style decks, would have an added layer of disruption and speed versus the other combo decks, and would be able to gobble up the mid-range decks, despite the abundance of removal and disruption that can come with mid-range, right? Or they would just, and then aggro, it depends on who you talk to. If you talk to the aggro player and they're like, I hate creature combo, they just like play a bunch of speed bumps and I can never trade profitably, and they just occasionally just gain infinite life or whatever. And then the creature combo players are like, can't beat red, they just like get a Fork Boulder or an Arc Trail, they pressure me too quickly, if I stumble at all I die, and I can't block because then I just lose my pieces. But that is no longer true. And that's, while it's not necessarily our job to be like, nope, this is how it is and this is how it always should be, it's good to have a creature combo deck be a legitimate competitive choice. And while Seeker Walk could still steal some wins here and there, or Hoof could take over, Seeker Walk is a birthing pod deck, but Hoof and some of the other creature combo lists don't even want to play pod at 1. They don't want to play pod at 0. They're just not pod decks. And pod decks, I think, are pretty interesting decks to have in the format for a couple of reasons. One, people like playing pod decks. They scratch that itch for a majority of players. They're exciting. They're fun. They're toolboxy. The pod decks offer a kind of an interesting level of punishment against some of the control decks that build to the board more often, where they have these like haymaker tutors to just set up their combos that can punish people for casting, Seasoned Dungeoneer, Minsk Buu, Undermounted Adventurer, Comet, whatever. And it's just appealing. It's an appealing kind of archetype, and one that hasn't gotten a lot of love, and that we would like to give some more love. So if you're a Sandy B player, if you're a Kiki player, if you are a Seeker Walk player, then hear you out. You can birthing pod to your heart's content. On that note, oh wait, no, I'm going alphabetically. Demonic Tutor. Demonic Tutor was changed from 4 points to 3 points. Before I talk about this, Kelly Furtado back for the 3rd month. Welcome back. Glad to have you. Good to see you. Have I told the anecdote that Nelly Furtado went to my both my elementary and my high school, and that I met and sang with her? It's really awkward. I was singing Promiscuous. Nelly Salahub. Every chance I get, that's true. It's look, some of the other stories that I have, I can't tell on stream, but that one I can, because that's, you know, interesting. It's interesting to people, and it's wholesome in a way. Demonic Tutor. This card is now 3 points. Why is Demonic Tutor now 3 points? A couple of reasons. We used to be a little worried about having both Demonic Tutor and Black Lotus in the same point spread, right? And I think that's a reasonable worry to have. But combo has changed. The other decks that combo typically preys on have changed drastically as well. And there are cards that have been added to the points list that make Demonic Tutor and Lotus being the full 10 less of a problem, right? Yawgmoth's Will is a point. Underworld Breach is now 3 points. Even Wishclaw Talisman's a point. Like, there are points being added to other tutors that are just too efficient, too abusable. And I mean, Underworld Breach is just a catastrophe in the first place. So yeah, it's Demonic Tutor. Demonic Tutor's back. I'm happy about that. One of the reasons why it's back, other than combo applications, is that mid-range decks don't really... Well, there's a couple of things. One, a mid-range deck is like very rarely going to choose Demonic Tutor as a part of its point spread, which is a damn shame, because it is a pretty good card for the mid-range decks to be able to find their Silver Bullet, their interactive card, their LD, whatever. But Moxen, playing Demonic Tutor at 4 is not as enticing as playing a Moxen at 3, which leads to more snowbally games. And here's a kind of a fun little thing, is that while Demonic at 3 is pretty comparable in power level to, say, it depends on the deck, obviously, but it's comparable in power level to certain mid-range archetypes running a third Mox, or even when you incorporate some of the new 1-point cards, you know, it's more powerful than running, say, Soul Ring or whatever. Even in cases where it is not, like, competitively a better pick or whatever, that doesn't matter, because people will pick it anyways. People will, like, even if it isn't the strategically optimized decision to play Demonic Tutor in your mid-range deck instead of playing Soul Ring, or instead of playing like an off-color Mox or whatever, people will still make that decision, because Demonic Tutor and tutors in general are fun. They make you feel very smart, and they let you flex some of your other decisions that you have made in deck building, which means that you're just going to get an increased diversity in the cards that people are playing, and the point spreads that people are playing. So yeah, I'm personally very excited about Demonic Tutor and lands. Lands got so many free points. Oh my god. Like, there's another 2 on this list. Technically 3 if I look back at some of my old lands point spreads. But I am excited to play some both combo lands and lands mid-range. Jife's Ungiven. This is a card that was originally 2 points, that is now 1 point. It was, and Demonic Tutor was a unanimous vote, much like how Gifts Ungiven is a unanimous vote. Unanimously voted from 2 down to 1. Gifts Ungiven is a 4-mana spell, which is not really a 2-point card. It's a 4-mana spell that, in order to, how do I want to word this? It is technically a 4-mana spell that wins the game, right? It is a 4-mana spell that wins the game if your opponent has stone nothing, and if you have the right pieces in the right places when you cast it. That said, that's not how Magic games always go. And in fact, this card being as pricey as it is, this card being one that in order to take the most advantage of, is often just fired off at end of turn, which is usually a benefit, but also just kind of puts a delay on like how long cards are in certain zones. So for instance, like you cast your Gifts Ungiven, your opponent is on your average Gifts Ungiven, your opponent is going to have priority before you use the pieces that have been put into the graveyard, opening them up to any number of graveyard hate graveyard hate pieces or spells that have popped up in abundance in the past couple of years. Or just, oh, now I need to play my, Vendilion Clique, or now I need to, I know that I have my Stifle available, and or I'll be able to make a count. I'll do something. I'll do something. It's expensive. The timing, the use case of this card in regards to timing leads it to being more vulnerable than you would expect. And in order to get the most out of this card, it is often paired with other highly pointed cards, or rather it was until this card just kind of dropped off the face of the fucking earth. And now at one point, I mean, rocking Gifts Ungiven in like a No Lotus Underworld Breach deck, or in High Tide, or a Flash Strategy, or Thoracle. It sounds weird that we're giving points to some of these decks that people aren't super big fans of. Time Vault as well. Getting access to that is pretty interesting. It, again, introduces a new 1-point card and makes the internal, kind of question of, oh, what am I using for my last 3 points, or my last point, or my last 2 points? It makes for interesting deck building, theory crafting, and discussion. So kind of what we're doing is getting a lot of these changes are there's some housekeeping, there's some trying to really suss out what needs to be increased. And Gifts Ungiven is a pretty good, well, this card obviously shouldn't be 2 points, but maybe at 1 point we're going to figure out whether or not there are some other cards that should maybe be more. Is there a link to the changes? No, but my Twitter is here. It's on the Discord. Here are the changes as a whole. I don't know how helpful this is to people, but we haven't put out the big block of stuff, Yeah, Gifts Ungiven. Very cool card. Another card that I'm excited to play in High Tide. I'm going to bust out some High Tide garbage, some lands combo decks, I think I want to try some KCI decks with this card. It's interesting, right? Gifts Ungiven is a very skill testing Magic card. It's a fun card to play with. It's a fun card to play against. It's expensive. It has these kind of weaknesses that also make you feel pretty smart for having them available if you're playing against the Gifts Ungiven. It's just an interesting card that you want to see more of, even in the piles that are a gimme, the Snapcaster, Snapcaster, Demonic Consultation, Thassa's Oracle Reanimate package or whatever, right? Even in those, it is interesting to be well, I can beat it because I have this piece of interaction that works against this configuration, or, I can give you this configuration and then attack your mana base in this away. And, it opens up to other stuff. It also just makes you think oh shit, if I'd set this up, I have to, I'm just dead to days, or I'm dead to X, Y, and Z, and that's interesting. Zephyrin Trip back for the second month. Love the content wheeler. Thank you so much. I love you. Glad to have you. Good to see you. Acacia Lol for the 5th month. What up? How you doing? How you been? Thank you so much for all the support. Glad to have you. Good to see you. How does Gifts compare to Intuition? They're different cards. It's funny because Intuition is the fact that Intuition can guarantee to put all the cards in the graveyard. I know you could do that with Gifts because, I only picked 2 or whatever. But But the fact that intuition guarantees that everything goes to the yard, especially with like a breach LED Savine's package or whatever, is pretty gross. But yeah, 3 mana is a lot less than 4. But also the I kill you combos off intuition are fewer than Gifts Ungiven. But the I kill you combos off intuition might cost fewer points or also just be more explosive. So they're similar cards in that they tutor, and some number of them are going to one zone and others are going to another zone. But in practice, they end up getting paired off, not all the time, but they often get paired with, they often get paired together for wider spreads and for a more dedicated combo, like a Thessa's Oracle or a Time Vault combo. They can, what am I looking to say here? I had a point and then I lost it because I started reading chat. They are different cards. One of them is cheaper and sets up explosive combos that are often easier to disrupt, whereas Gifts Ungiven is more expensive, has a wider variety of combos it can set up, with overall the combos it does set up being at times less powerful, but also just there's such a large range that make Gifts Ungiven a little more reliable at killing your opponent, you know? And then intuition can also just put intuition is a fun second entomb in Commander. Yeah, intuition can also just, like, the fact that intuition puts stuff in the graveyard guarantees to put 2 to 3 things in the graveyard for at 3 mana is pretty important for the Reanimator or Entomb combo decks. Spirit Kamui, welcome to the stream. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for joining us. Glad to have you. Good to see you. And Cobalt Tulips, also thank you for subscribing and joining us. Wow, just getting in for that sweet 2023 juice, huh? Just got to get in there at the end of the year. Pharmacist Judge, what up? Welcome back for the 26th month. Evening, y'all. How you doing? How you been? Glad to have you. Good to see you. Happy New Year. Not yet, but you know, almost Happy New Year. And Elf Lawyer, thank you for gifting 2 more subs to the community, to 7th Spectre and Lord Drollin. That's very kind of you. Thank you so much. And you just wanted to beat Yalk. Congratulations, you did. Powerful. All right. Natural Order. Natural Order has been voted to go from 3 to 2. This card was not a unanimous vote for yes. In fact, there was one person that voted no on having Natural Order go down from 3 to 2, and that was me, Ben. That's yours truly. I'm not gonna focus on it for too long, because this card is, I think Natural Order is still just incredibly powerful, totally worth 3 points. One of the most underrated cards on the points list for its flexibility and utility. I mean, we just got a Traxa, for Christ's sake. Like, this card is messed up, right? Card is messed up. And with some of the other points changes we made, I don't know how necessary this was, but I don't think it's going to end the world or anything like that, right? It is still a card that requires you to play cheap green creatures, and also play some big dum-dums that can't be cast that easily. But Natural Order is going down to 2. Like I said, I'm going to talk about this as democratically as I can, right? Natural Order decks are not in the best spot because there are a lot of tools from the control decks and opposing mid-range decks that can punish the all-in Natural Order decks. And also at 3 points, it's not the most appealing card for most players. when they're building their green X mid-range decks, they would, again, rather go to Moxen. So much like reducing Demonic Tutor from 4 to 3, reducing Natural Order from 3 to 2 tries to line it up with the power level of this card compared to the other 2-point cards, as well as giving some incentive for mid-range decks to try playing something in their point spreads other than Moxen, and trying to get that big swingy play from maybe including more top end cards as well, like an Atraxa, like Primeval Titan or Tyrannix Rex or Carnage Tyrant. Do you know how good Carnage Tyrant is in like modern Canlander? That card, I'm going to be casting that card once or twice next year. Like that card genuinely, it's obviously a 6-mana card, but that card ends games. That card kills people dead. And yeah, it's a pretty strong card, but right now the most popular decks in the format and the strongest decks in the format are Blue X Control and mid-range and combo. And this doesn't do too much against that. And hopefully the decrease in points is going to get people to experiment with it a bit, try to build mid-range decks to, try to counter the triple mox mid-range decks by just having more like heavy hitting, big over the top cards instead of just trying to poop out a 3-drop as quickly as possible. I think there's some interesting stuff you could do with this, some interesting kind of niche builds you can go to as well. Again, lands mid-range is something that I'm excited to play with this card, because now you can run Demonic Tutor, Natural Order, Strip. You have free crop rotation, and you got 3 points that you can do whatever the hell you want with. And that's kind of beautiful. WKU fan 89 back for the 10th month. Excited to head back to the lab in light of these new points changes. Yeah, me too. I think overall these changes are quite good for Canadian Highlander, and I'm excited to give it a whirl. Again, like I said up at the top of the show, I don't think that neither myself nor the council believes that all of these changes are going to fix every single issue that the format is experiencing right now. But a lot of these changes are being made to do 2 primary things. One, make 1-point cards more impactful. This is done in a variety of ways, either just introducing more 1-point cards to the list, or just making any kind of reduction. Any kind of reduction to middling and lower cost cards, which lets you be more flexible with whichever card you are trying to like tech into your deck, or with increases on cards like Ancestral Recall, where it's like, look, this is just a cracked magic card. If you want to play it, you get it, but then you have to pick what your points are going to be in. Are your other points going to be in more card draw? Are they going to be in other cards that let you play to the board? Are they going to be in tutors to make sure that you can recall as much as possible? Like there's levels to this shit. No, there's a push for the importance of 1-point cards and like pointsless customizations, because we kind of fell into this groove where the points lists were so homogenized, and it was just not great, not healthy. And then number 2 is by reducing the points on a lot of cards like this, and especially increasing Ancestral Recall, we can get a better grasp on what we want to see at 1 point, especially in regards to 4th Eorlingas, Umezawa's Jitte, and I guess, like I said, Recall to 8, because those are 2 cards where having them at 1 point and having Recall at 8 really gives us the ability of seeing what 1-point cards people are going to kind of gravitate towards, and what a 1-point card looks like in 2024 and forward, and whether or not that is going to expand to include cards like Minsk Buu, Timeless Heroes, Comet, Stellar, Plup. Comet Stellar Pup, White Plume Adventurer, you know, that kind of stuff. Urza Saga, Ancient Tomb. There are a bunch of cards that get tossed around and voted on and discussed for going to 1 point that are currently 0 that might break what people perceive as our current pointing kind of mantra and approach for what a pointed card looks like, you know. Anywho, apologies if that was a little rambly. I'm tired and I took a lot of medicine before starting the stream. What is Canadian Highlander? I only play regular Commander. Canadian Highlander is like Cube. Do you know what Cube, like you're familiar with Cube? It's like vintage Cube, except you pick what deck you want to play and it's a 100 card singleton. So big ass deck built around your favorite thing to do in the game. There's no banned list, but cards have a points total. So you get to customize kind of which ones you get. So technically you have Ancestral Recall, Moxen, Black Lotus, Time Walk, all these powerful cards running around, but you only get so many of them. Spellseeker, the card that this card is so funny to me because when this card was printed, Canadian Highlander actually got a shout out. There was a shout out for this card being a something that they knew would be popular for Canadian Highlander, Cube, and CDH. And they sure were right. So Spellseeker has been voted from 3 to 2. This was a unanimous vote. Yeah, we've increased Flash. Flash has gone up. Flash is so unfortunate because Flash is like such a busted Magic card, but the Flash archetype was criminally overpointed for so many years. And then it got to a point where it's like, great, now Flash is like fine. And it's like good, but it's not too good. But it's still at a point total where people will play it. And then fucking Lord of the Rings showed up. And the stupid fat hobbit had to go, oh, looks like I'm going to ruin this set. And then, then Flash just had to go right back up. Unfortunate timing. And Spellseeker is a card that has just kind of taken splash damage from Flash for a long time, where this card realistically could be a 1 point or even a 2 point card. It's just Seeker Walk was the hot shit. And this card is obviously absurd in Seeker Walk. It is the Seeker to Walk. Flash into the One Ring? No, flash into Samwise Gamgee. Yeah, you'd flash into Samwise Gamgee, Cauldron Familiar, and then some other stuff to set up a infinite combo that had protection, that used fewer cards and other combos. It was wild. Anywho, Spellseeker's always kind of taken some splash damage from Flash, although it has it's deservedly at point on the points list because of Time Walk and Ancestral Recall, and even Reanimate. It wouldn't be pointed if it was just Reanimate, but this card, when this card was 1 point, this was absurd in Reanimator. And in fact, is still at 2 points. It's worth considering in Reanimator now that Demonic Tutor is so cheap. Now that Demonic Tutor is 3 points. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but yeah, you got your Spellseeker. This card's pretty good. One of the reasons why we want to see Spellseeker at 2 is that we believe that Flash had been, reasonably pointed recently. And Seeker Walk being a deck that, while still viable, mostly due to the oops, I just win kind of button that Spellseeker can provide if your opponent has no action at all. 3 points was too many points. 2 feels like a good starting point. Again, there may be a world where this card is only 1 point and we just let creature combo decks have a chance to blow out the Jeskai decks and also die to Fury, or disrupt the Black Lotus combo and then kill with their own tech. But yeah, it's a 3-mana card. It's Spellseeker. Card was probably overpointed at 3, but yeah, not much to say. I don't know. I mean, I gotta tell you, I've been talking about these cards for fucking months, and so now to just be like, yeah, I mean, I guess it's Spellseeker. Strip. Strip is now 2 points. This was a unanimous pointing. Was originally 3 points. Strip is a card where it is not... It's tough. It's a card where at 3, it often saw play because you didn't have anything better to do, right? Like you were either just priced into playing a 3-point card here because you were on like Mox. I mean, God, the point spread I'm about to say sounds heinous. The like Mox Pearl Soul Ring Strip spread for D&T, or you're like on Crypt Strip Jitte, which is wild to think. Or you were just a 2-color aggressive deck, low curve aggressive deck that was on Mox, and then you're like, what do I do? Soul Ring? Off-color Mox? What do I do here? But now you got options. You have an option that pushes you away from just doing like Mox, triple Mox, plus I guess nothing now the price of progress is 0. It pushes you away from Mox spreads. It pushes you into a direction that aggressive decks and engine decks can actually beat out the mid-range lists occasionally, or punish some of the pretty powerful slower lands. All the Triomes running around, Library of Alexandria, Academy, which is, Academy decks are pretty strong right now, and so having Strip as a way to attack that is pretty reasonable. It's Strip is it's a card where there's always some hesitation with reducing this card because, like, is better Magic played with more blowouts from this? But I think that there are going to be fewer blowouts given the amount of land cyclers that show up, the fact that people are playing sufficient amount of lands in their decks, cards are just cheaper in general, treasure production, whole wave of crap that just make, there are fewer non-games caused by mana issues, or there should be, theoretically. I don't want to say hypothetically. Theoretically. And yeah. Strip mine. It's on its own, I don't think it would have a huge impact on the lands decks, land combo or land mid-range. But combining it with Demonic Tutor and Natural Order going down, and even Jitte in some cases, that's pretty nice. Striplock is unfun, but so are a lot of things. It's unfun, but like Canadian Highlander is a format for people that get enjoyment out of just like committing war crimes against each other, right? Like, it's fun because you get to do wild, powerful shit, and ideally you're not doing the same wild, powerful shit over and over and over again. Was the number 10 for points chosen for a specific reason? It's a nice round number. Used to be 7 points, but 10 is just so easy to follow. It's 10. Like a scale from 1 to 10. Very straightforward. It also worked better with the value, like the numbers at the time that we were trying to toy around with. Yeah. I'm also excited for the fast bond combo lists that I'm going to be playing with this card and with like Gifts Ungiven, like Demonic Tutor, Strip, Gifts Ungiven, Intuition. Like, then I got 3 points. Holy shit. Mystical Tutor for life from the loam. Yeah, there are people that play it on Magic Online. There are people that play it on, I think both. Yes. Yeah, there are Cockatrice players, a couple of Cockatrice players. Also, if you play in paper, there are likely, depending on where you are, if you're in a major city or a somewhat large city, there will be people that play it in your city. Or certainly at like a Magic Con or whatever. And then last, but certainly not least, is Umezawa's Jitte. Jitte was voted from 2 to 1. And I gotta tell you, I was on this train since day fucking 1. Quite literally, I took a break from the, for people that don't know, I was on the council for God knows how long, right? Like 2012 to, no, probably before that, 2011, 2010. Yeah, definitely not 2012. My brain still, I mean, I posted 2018 as the meme for the going live. My brain still feels like it's like 2018. But I was on the council for quite some time. I took a break because it was quarantine. I wasn't playing Canadian Highlander, and I was focusing on Gladiator and other stuff. And once I started playing again, I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I think I'm gonna, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should go for the council. Maybe, maybe I should try to get back on it again. Blah blah blah. And then I saw this fucking points change, dropping this from 2 to 1. I'm like, no, that's it. That's it. I'm done. An incredibly reactionary change from Jitte at 1 popping up and making creature combo reasonable. Thankfully, enough time has passed that people are going like, well, this should probably be changed. This card was originally 1 point, then went up to 2 points in October 2022. And now we're back down to 1. Yeah, it's a little overdue. Not much to say about this. Auto removal. This card's expensive. It's also gives people more flexibility with what they're using their 1-pointers for. That's it. That's it. Those are all the cards that received changes. So again, Ancestral Recall to 8 points, 4th Eorlingas to 1, Birthing Pod down to 0, Demonic Tutor down to 3, Gifts Ungiven down to 1, Natural Order down to 2, Spellseeker down to 2, Strip Mine down to 2, Umezawa's Jitte to 1. There were 2 other cards that were voted on, and I will talk about them right here, right now. Where am I typing? Minsk Buu. Let's talk about this guy. Minsk Buu Timeless Heroes was voted on to go up to 1 point. And the vote was unsuccessful. Like I said, a card that is being added or removed to the points list or going up by more than 1 point or going down by more than 1 point requires a unanimous vote. Minsk Buu would be added to the points list, meaning that we needed 5 votes in order for this card to become a point. The votes were split 3 to 2 in favor of not pointing Minsk Buu. With Sasha, Spencer, and Evan voting to not increase this card and add it to the points list, and myself and Robin Sorensen voting to add this card to the points list. So, better luck next time. I still think that this card is the, probably, other than 4th Eorlingas, which got added, I think that this card is another great testing card for like, hey, are you playing this at 1? The answer should mostly be yes, because including this card in your deck increases your chances of winning the game drastically. Or at least when you draw this card, your chances of winning the game are just like through the roof. Like, this card is not real. It is unreal. And the insinuation that it is just another top end card is it's wild. It's wild to me. Yeah. I think people look at cards and see some form of counterplay and then assume that that means that it's okay, because they associate something broken with not being broken means that there's no counterplay to it. And I don't think that's entirely correct. Like, having a card like this that is just like the biggest gear check of all time is wild. This card just fucking kills people dead. it is so incredibly difficult to come back in a game where your opponent gets to untap with this card. Regardless of whether or not, I mean, if they untap with this card and they don't have a hamster, then it's still really gross for you, because then they're going to get a hamster again and it's going to be a 4/4 again. And if they untap with their hamster, then you're fucking dead. You're taking 7, or they're taking, or you're either taking 7 and they get to keep that hamster, or you're taking 8 and they're drawing 4 cards. And yeah, I feel that probably by the end of the year, this card will be on the points list. But not yet. And that's okay. Just takes a little more convincing. And then the other card is Merchant Scroll. Merchant Scroll is currently 1 point, and there was a vote to bring Merchant Scroll to 0. How did I vote? I voted no, right? Yeah. I know I voted no, but I looked at this and I saw a split that was it looked like my image, like my profile picture or whatever, and I was like, what the fuck? I didn't vote yes on this. Merchant Scroll was voted to go down to 0. It was unsuccessful. Again, would need a unanimous 5 votes. And it got 3 votes for no and 2 for yes. The votes for no were myself, Evan, and Spencer, and the votes for yes were Robin and Sasha. Yeah, this card still sees occasional play, and I think that's okay. You know? They're another mindset that when it comes to pointing cards and moderating a points list is the idea that if a card sees 0 play and is on the points list, then the points list is not properly doing its job, because nobody's playing the card. So we need to decrease the points so that people start playing the card. But people don't play cards for a variety of reasons, and cards are pointed for a variety of reasons. One of the reasons as to why this card is pointed is because it finds Ancestral Recall. And when it doesn't find Ancestral Recall, it finds Force of Will. And when it doesn't find Force of Will, it finds Flash. And can you believe that I said Force of Will before Flash? I can't, because I wanted to do it the other way. Yeah. The fucked up part is that if this card isn't finding a big blue pointed card, it is finding Force of Will, which Force of Will might be one of the best cards that you can play in. I mean, it was one of the best cards you can play in 2014, and it's probably going to be one of the best cards you can play in 2024, especially if you're tapping out for Minsk Buu. Keeping up Force of Will is pretty fucking good. Yeah, Merchant Scroll. I personally don't want this card off the points list. I don't give a shit about some of the lesser combo decks wanting to use this as an additional tool. I care about the fact that this card is just finding more Ancestral Recalls, more Flash, and just, doing the same shit over and over and over again. Tutors are an inevitability of a high-powered competitive, air quotes, format. But, I think it's okay to try and balance cards in your format around the idea that, like, maybe people shouldn't just be doing the same thing over and over and over again, especially if that thing is just drowning people in card advantage without having to make any strong decisions on whether or not they should kill a thing or, counter a thing. It's not very exciting. Yeah. All right. Those are the changes and the not changes. Moving forward, like I said, I'm pretty excited for these points. I hope that they relay the intended goals that we had in mind with making these changes. And then personally, I would like to see Minsk Buu and potentially Comet or White Plume Adventurer also finding a home on the points list. But I'll take this. This is good. Baby steps, baby. Baby steps. Yeah, cool. Thanks for watching. Now I'm just looking at my notifications.